Welcome in, everybody, for a new edition of Warm Weather Fans, the Sunbelt Podcast. My name is Brian Stone, your host today, here joined by Zeke Palermo. Unfortunately, we had a bit of an unscheduled absence last week with our episodes, but we are back. We have taken in, digested week 3 in the Sunbelt, and now we're ready to, I guess, regurgitate our takes, if I'm going to follow this line of a metaphor. But Zeke, how's it going with you, man?
I'm good. I'm kicking strep. I started to feel real yuck around midday Monday and couldn't get on antibiotics till Wednesday. So it was just battling through that. But I was right as rain for Saturday. Got to watch a pretty disappointing slate, I'd say, overall from a Sunbelt perspective. I think this is overall going to be a bad year for the whole conference. There's a lot more bottom feeders than there are clear-cut conference winning type teams. Last year, we had at least one team that, had a shout at a playoff run if Boise State didn't exist, obviously.
Yeah.
This year, I think a Sunbelt team through 3 weeks, granted, but through 3 weeks, a conference or a playoff appearance from a Sunbelt team would be an affront to the format. So,
unfortunately, we didn't have time to talk about it, but
yeah,
I went to the JMU Louisville game, and I don't know whose decision this was between offensive coordinator Dean Kennedy or their head coach. Whoever is designing the ins and outs of which quarterback comes in needs to take their head out of their rear end. They single-handedly cost themselves. I don't know if it's Chesney. I don't know if it's Kennedy. They single-handedly cost themselves a win over a P5 in that game. And I don't really understand what they were thinking or why they were thinking it. But I know what you said. I know what you mean. And I definitely agree. When it's bad in this conference, it's really bad. And we'll get to some of those performances. But we did have some really good performances overall as well, and we'll definitely touch on those. Speaking of, do you want to go ahead and do your first, how about this? So we each have 2 positive kind of takeaways. You do one, I'll do one, and then you do one again, and then we'll
sure.
kind of snake draft style do it.
Yeah. I think we're going to bury the lead of the conference slate, the only conference game. And I'm going to start with one of the positives, which was South Alabama. Despite a 31-15 loss to Auburn, this was a really good outing from a South Alabama team that had given us concern in previous weeks. South Al goes 1-2 on the year. Auburn goes 3-0, and I think they're ranked 34 now. But this South Al team did not do what you wanted it to against Morgan State in the season opener. Hung around with Tulane, but ultimately lost. That was actually an equally good loss, I would argue, to Tulane. South Alabama hung around in this game and performed pretty well against what is now a bottom of the rankings but ranked team. I'm checking out my notes here. Bishop Davenport, that's kind of the storyline here. He went 18 for 26, which was pretty good. I mean that is nothing to write home about. But against a team like Auburn, we've seen teams this year already play, rank 15 to 25 teams and just get smattered, right? Their quarterback goes 10 for 32. Their running back room goes, 30 carries for 90 yards. Bishop Davenport was a highlight here, 18 for 26 for 170, 2 touchdowns and a pick. He also ran the ball 7 times for 27 yards. And that's obviously deflated by any sack numbers. So I thought this was a really impressive loss from South Alabama. And I typically try to avoid that type of rhetoric. I think that it is often harmful, especially at the top levels of the sport, as we look at 0-2 Notre Dame, right, which is ranked in the top 15 of the most recent poll. It's I think that's harmful. That's bad. but we're in the early stages of the season. This is where we're at. We're saying, hey, South Al, 15-31 loss to Auburn. That's a good loss. Bishop Davenport played well. Kentrell Bullock ran okay. He didn't really break off anything. His longest rush was 9 yards, but he was efficient with his 16 carries. He's one breakaway away from going 16 yards for 90. Instead, he finishes 16 for 57. So there's some good stuff there. Another storyline that I followed through this game, and I'm going to keep following through the season, is just where South Alabama's targets go. We've talked about for several years now that no matter who the head coach is, it seems like this team wants a high volume guy. And at least early, Anthony Eager stepped out this week, 8 receptions for 55 yards. That's by no means a really good split. 8 catches for 55, an average of 7 per catch is not great. But the volume is there. And I'm curious to see if he takes that volume moving forward.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add to that. I didn't catch much of this game. Very, very little, just based on kind of how the timing worked out. But yeah, I was impressed that they kept it within a 2-score game, because it could have just as easily gotten really out of hand, especially when it was 28-9 at halftime. I was like, I guess I shouldn't have, but I kind of took my eye off this game and was like, it's 28-9 at halftime. Like, Auburn will definitely keep kind of adding on to that lead, and then they scored 3 points the entire second half. So credit to South Alabama and their defense for being able to hold Alabama to 3, or Auburn, sorry, to 3 to 3 second half points. All right, I'm done burying the lead. I'm going to go ahead and give credit where credit's due. So Old Dominion accomplished a number of things on Saturday. Number one being, I mean, if you're an Old Dominion fan, I'll get to that in 1 second. Number one being that they got Brent Pry at Virginia Tech fired. Now, I know that Brent Pry contributed to that based on the previous 2 weeks. I had never been super high on Brent Pry as a head coach. I think he's a pretty good defensive coordinator, but it's kind of the Peter principle of, like, you get promoted until you're like, you reach a point where you're like, I'm not qualified for this. That's what Brent Pry always gave me vibes wise. I don't know who's doing the hiring in Blacksburg. Stop. Let somebody else do it, because everything since Frank Beamer retired has been a disaster. So I don't really understand what their thinking is methodology. It's not working. Like, get rid of it. Justin Fuentes, Brent Pry, throw it out. Start over. I don't know what you're thinking. Okay. And I want to go ahead and right now and give Old Dominion credit, because we had been calling for a long time, even going back to last season. Yeah. Somebody on this offense beside not named Colton Joseph needs to step up. And everybody did. Everybody did. We were asking for this after week 1 against Indiana, when Colton Joseph threw 3 interceptions and their only scores were 2 long touchdowns by Joseph. They had Ja'Cory Thomas, Naeem Abdul-Rahim Gladding, and TJ Johnson, all with receptions of 36 or more yards. Colton Joseph threw for 276 and 2 touchdowns, no picks, clean sheet, 16 of 22. Running game wise, Joseph contributed on the ground, 63 yards and a score, but Traquan Jones stepped up, 13 carries, 101 and a touchdown. And Zeke, I know you love to play the take his longest rush away game. His longest rush was only 26 yards. And I understand it's almost like a quarter of his total, but I mean, 12 carries for 75 is nothing to scoff at either. So, and then obviously their defense showed up. I mean, they were up 28-0 at halftime. They straight up beat the living crap out of Virginia Tech. And Brent Pry, buddy, it'd be nice if you came to Statesboro and took over the defensive coordinator job after we inevitably fire Brandon Bailey. However, you're not supposed to be an FBS head coach, especially not at the Power 5 level. Like, it's done for you, buddy.
Yeah. Something that I was looking at through Pro Football Focus. There's only one quarterback in all of college football, minimum 30 dropbacks. So any guy that's playing any semblance of time that is top 10 in passing rating, not passing rating, but passing grade and rushing grade among quarterbacks. And that's Colton Joseph. Only guy in the country, top 10. And so the fact that guys are finally starting to step up for him is going to elevate Old Dominion's ceiling. I am not ready. This sounds bad. I'm not ready to admit that I was wrong about them because I know all three of us were pretty hitting the hammer pretty hard on there just not being guys around him. And I need to see this again from Old Dominion. They play Liberty and Coastal Carolina over the next 2 weeks. I need to see this repeated and then some against Coastal at the very least before I'm willing to say that, hey, we were wrong and that this wasn't beating up on a already given up Virginia Tech team. But credit where credit's due. I mean, Traquan Jones against NC Central last week ran 160 yards on only 4 carries. And they saw that, gave him the touches that he wanted. You talked about his numbers, and he only did that on 13 carries. So I'm curious to see if they continue to feed him the rock. He has one of the easiest jobs in football, having a rushing quarterback. I mean, it's like the Derrick Henry thing. It's like no matter how good you are, when you have Lamar Jackson standing right beside you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good you are because you're going to be even better.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see if they look to him moving forward.
Can I add one more thing before you do your next positive? I do think they're going to crush Liberty and Coastal because, frankly, I don't think Liberty's that good this year, and we'll get to Coastal. You know, Tim Beck, with all those head coaches that got fired today, you were lucky you weren't in the pack.
Yeah.
I think if they had the money, brother, you would have been gone already. The one thing I will say, my knock on Old Dominion with the other players outside of Colton Joseph has always been consistency. Like one of these guys can show up 1 week and look great, and then they'll go play, I don't know who's another good team. They'll play Southern Miss or whoever. I don't know who's actually on their schedule. JMU. They'll show up and play JMU, and his leading receiver will have 38 yards. And you're just like, what happened? 2 weeks ago you played Virginia Tech and everything was gravy, and now you come out and it's Colton Joseph standing there in the pocket for 8 seconds waiting for somebody to get open, and it's just like, it's not happening. That's always been my knock on them, is they don't have somebody that does it week after week after week. Maybe in the running game they found that in Traquan Jones, like you said, played well last week against NC Central, and then played really well against Virginia Tech. Maybe they've uncovered someone who can also contribute, but they don't have a high target earning receiver. They have a lot of like big play type guys that can like win down the field, but they don't have a guy that's going 8 catches for 91 yards and a score like that, you can go to. So my whole thing has been like, yes, this is nice. I'd like to see it, like you said, like week after week after week, and beyond the Liberty Coastal matchups, because frankly, I don't think those teams are very good.
Sure. Something else before we move away from Old Dominion, something we didn't get a chance to talk to about last week. I'm not exactly sure of the timing of it, but Jason Henderson, Old Dominion All-American linebacker for 2 years, 22 and 23. He tore his ACL, MCL, MPFL, which I'm not certain I knew existed. That sounds like its own league, and his meniscus. That's the men's professional frisbee league right there. And his meniscus in a game against Georgia State in 23. Played a game last year, but only played one game and then redshirted. He decided to, I guess, medically retire. He said he's stepping away, but it sounds like he just was never able to get back to 100%. And that's a real bummer because this guy was electric, man. Yeah. My stance on tackles as a counting stat, but I mean, this guy is just everywhere at all the time. It's like him and Carlton Marshall. We had two of not just the best linebackers in the conference, but in the country, in the conference at the same time. And Henderson was kind of the holdover from that. And it's, I don't know, happy trails, man. Best of luck. Cause that guy was a ball player, and it's a real bummer that for Old Dominion, it's not a huge loss. He's not been playing for you for a year and a half. But I wish him the best. Cause that guy was just really fun to watch.
And they have a pretty deep linebacking core, and they only play 3 of them as well. So they've got people who can slot in and play in his spot. But yeah, it is sad that when who was like on a trajectory of being like an all-time Sun Belt player, just has to hang it up early because physically they just can't do it anymore.
Yeah. We'll quit bearing the lead as well. The real game of the week was App at Southern Miss. It's our first taste of conference play, and Southern Miss kind of tallywhacks App State 38-22. It was not a particularly close game. Southern Miss was up 17-7 at halftime and never really gave up that lead. App State went for too late to bring it within 16, but way too far at that point. Congratulations, Southern Miss. You could have people projected Southern Miss as the best team in the conference and the worst team in the conference this year, and everywhere in between. And I was in very much in the lower half. They were in my, probably fourth in the West type spot. And this is an App team that we liked. App looked really good against Charlotte. They looked not great against Lindenwood. That was actually a really bad win for them. I think it was 10-7 final. But this is an App team that we really liked. We liked what Dowell Loggins is doing there. And so congratulations, Southern Miss. I mean, this is possibly the end of a really, really bad, dark time for you. This is huge, man. Braylon Braxton was great, as he always is going to be. You get a lot of rushing from a bunch of different guys. No one really stands out, but like Jeffrey Pittman carries the ball 6 times, but then you've get like 3 guys who each had 3 carries. So you mix and match there. Same thing in the receiving room. Tychon Champman with 4 for 112. But then there's a bunch of guys with 3, 2, another guy with 4 catches, that being Pittman actually. So they spread the ball really well. They played good defense against an App State team that with AJ Swan was looking really good early. They've got guys like Dalton Stroman, who's pretty good, but I mean, they shut him down. Swan put up a stinker to the point that he got pulled for a guy who I'd never even heard of, Noah Gillen. And then
who was worse than him. Because
who was worse than him?
Say what you want about Swan throwing those 3 interceptions. I was flipping when the Georgia Southern game went to halftime. Yeah. I flipped over to this one. Gillen wasn't putting the ball near anybody.
Right. No,
it was just off
very poor.
Yeah.
Very poor. His QBR 6.7. Which doesn't even make sense. 11 for 24 and 109 yards, no interceptions. I've seen worse stat lines get far higher QBRs. So maybe I just don't understand the formula. That's crazy. Gillen performed so badly. Who do we see come in? Old friend Billy Wiles. Hello. Goes 5 for 5.
Southern Miss alum, right?
Southern Miss something.
Not alum. I guess he's whatever. Visitor.
Well,
Billy Wiles.
I don't think anyone in Hattiesburg or within 150 miles is going to want to acknowledge Billy Wiles as one as their own. Same thing with I don't know who else, Ty Keys, right? Any of those other guys that they trotted over that 3-4 year span with, gosh, I've already buried his name. Thankfully,
Ethan Crawford.
Oh my gosh. So, hey man, Southern Miss, here we go. Maybe this is the start of something. Again, this is an App team that looked bad against Lindenwood last week, so we got to see it. We got to see it shake out. But App was kind of the best team through the first couple weeks. Who else is?
I think we gave them a little bit too much credit for beating Charlotte. I guess we don't know how bad of a team Charlotte is. But someone sent us. I guess this could be the title of the episode if we really wanted to do this, but I guess someone sent us a tweet this morning when, last night, or we're recording this on Sunday. On Saturday, I tweeted out the stat lines of it was Gillen and Swan because Wiles hadn't taken a snap yet. And I said, it's a bad day to be an App State quarterback. And someone responded this morning with the headline, Swan dive. And I was like, pretty good. Can't argue with that.
Hey, shout out JLE 1030-994. Much appreciated, man.
Yeah, I'm just kind of like, I think Zeke, I think where your main concern could lie is Southern Miss's seeming inability to run the ball consistently, I think
Sure.
could be a problem later. But like, okay, this was one of my favorite things. So after we did our week 1 recap, we posted it and we were kind of like, the West maybe is not even as
Right.
strong as we had already anticipated because of Louisiana. And one of my favorite things that comment people do
Mhm.
is that they'll say something, but they won't offer like who it is that we were missing. So someone
Right.
was like, "Oh, these guys think the West is bad just because Louisiana is bad," and I'm like, "Well, who is this magic team that
Right.
is being like hidden that we're not acknowledging? Maybe South Alabama, who knows? But
Mhm.
if it's Southern Miss, I agree. I just wanted to see Southern Miss play a conference game or like a team that was on their level talent wise and see what they looked like."
No, I mean, it's still early showings, and this team's only other win is Jackson State, which
Right.
sorry to that one guy, our bad. But their only win right now is still only Jackson State, so I guess there's still time to see how this actually plays out. But it looks like I was really wrong, and revel in this because later in the episode I will not be as gracious because there's some things I'm just going to be right about.
Okay. All right, so I'll get to my last positive one. This is sort of on a sliding scale, but I'm going to say Arkansas State playing within a 1-score game with the 14th ranked team in the country,
Yeah.
who Arkansas State fans skip like 5 seconds ahead. I think Iowa State's fraudulent. But anyway, so well, I mean, go back. I went back and when I was watching the game, I went back and looked at who their wins are. So they got the preseason bump of the ranking. You know, that's
Yep.
always got like an inherent bias that they keep with it. They win in Ireland against what we now know is a bad Kansas State team. And then all their other wins are against like Iowa, who nobody's saying Iowa's going to win anything of note. And then I can't even remember who the other team is. And now their fourth is against Arkansas State. I will say though, we had much maligned Arkansas State's defense, and rightfully so. I mean,
Mhm.
frankly, statistically, there's no way you can kind of excuse it
Right.
and just be like, "Don't worry about it." However, again, holding within 8 points of a team that's ranked in the top 15 when you're a Sun Belt school, yeah, kudos to you guys. Like because as we'll see later, there are teams that are playing unranked other teams and can't even accomplish that task. So I'm going to give them credit where credit's due. I think Iowa State had a good bit yardage wise, but they couldn't get on the scoreboard against Arkansas State, and that
Yeah.
might be more of a canary in the coal mine for Iowa State long term than it is
About Arkansas
indicative
State.
of Arkansas State.
Yeah. Jalen Rayner, that guy, we knew this. But man, late in the game, they just shot themselves in the foot. This team, they broke off. Arkansas State broke off a pretty long run, and then like 2 plays later ends up on the 2. Goes offensive pass interference into holding. To have to settle again. You were on the 2. You have to settle for a 40-yard field goal. So that's awesome. And then you have a chance late to, I think it was to tie. I don't remember what the exact margin was. But there's 7 minutes left in the game or so.
Yeah.
And Jalen Rayner, who again, consensus very good quarterback from a Sunbelt perspective. 1st and 10, drops back, relatively clean pocket, launches it, maybe 50, 60 yards, overshoots his receiver by 10 yards into the hands of the defensive back. It was one of the ugliest
Basically
interceptions I've
a
seen.
punt return.
Yeah, on 1st and 10. And it was
Nuts.
just, well, no, I mean, the defensive back had to kind of breadbasket it. It looked as if he was running the route himself.
Yeah.
And it's not because he jumped the route. It's just because, I don't know, receiver
He just
gave up
kept
on it.
running.
Yeah.
Like it was a fly, and he just kept running until he got under it.
Yeah. So those late Arkansas State really shot themselves in the foot. And that fits my narrative about Butch Jones. But
we'll give them credit this week. You can hammer them later when they underachieve if they do so in conference play.
I suppose I will.
You want to do your first negative now?
Yeah, first negative. I'm going to say another team that shot themselves in the foot, but got away with a win. Georgia State. Hello. Georgia State in their
37-21.
37-21 win over Murray State commits, by my count, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 penalties. Of those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them are 15-yard penalties. 7 15-yard penalties. You're also looking at 2 false starts, an illegal formation, and an illegal snap. I did not know that an illegal snap was even a penalty before yesterday.
Yeah.
Additionally,
you can't pick up as the center, you can't pick up the ball and like twitch. Like it has to be all one motion. That's kind of what it is.
Yeah, that makes sense, but come on, bro. You are a college
yeah,
football.
you don't see it very often in like a center that is worth their salt.
Another thing that gave me real pause in this win over Memphis is the quarterback situation, because Del McGee or Hugh Jackson or somebody's been chatting with the folks at JMU because TJ Finley, I don't have the snap count the right order, so please excuse me, but TJ Finley and Cameron Brown split the snaps at quarterback 33-31. I'm not sure which direction it went, but split the snaps 33-31. We know that doesn't work. I've compared it to when it was Mark Sanchez and Tim Tebow was the first time I ever saw this try to happen or try to make this work in New York. And shocker, both of those guys are bums. I went back and I looked back at like those old Cleveland teams, because that's where I know Hugh Jackson from. I know he has a very long tenured career, but that's where I know him from. I look back at those times because he had a lot of bad quarterbacks. And I'm like, did he try any of this? He's on the record of saying, I want a quarterback one. He's on the record of saying, I want a guy to have that job. And so now either he or McGee are trying this thing with TJ Finley. TJ Finley was not good. 2 interceptions, 2 bad picks. Cameron Brown looks really interesting. And I, as a fan, I want them to give him the full keys to this offense. He's homegrown. He's in state. He's only a sophomore. So, I mean, this is a guy that could be here for 3 more years. Give him the keys. I don't understand why we insist to let 38-year-old TJ Finley, who's on his 7th team in the 7th different conference, the opportunity to play. A guy who wasn't, I don't believe he transferred in, but was like not being allowed to play by the NCAA due to, transfer rules. So I'm not certain that he was even allowed to be practicing with the team. He wasn't on the team roster until 2 weeks ago. The guy's just not sharp yet. So in this win, that's the bad. Georgia State shooting themselves in the foot. Ted Hurst, though, 10 catches, 172. Holy.
Yeah.
That's my first bad.
I remember from a fantasy football perspective, I remember one major thing about Hugh Jackson's time in Cleveland. Well, actually, I guess 2. Number 1 was that they had a rookie Nick Chubb on the team, and he would not take Carlos Hyde out of the game to put Nick Chubb in, to the point where they played the Raiders one week and Nick Chubb had like 3 carries for like 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the GM had to take it upon himself to trade Carlos Hyde so that he was forced to put Nick Chubb on the field because he wouldn't do it. Like he was like, no, it's the veteran's going to win the job. Like, so blah, blah, blah. And then I think he did the same thing kind of with Baker and Tyrod Taylor early. Like they drafted Baker number 1. I think Tyrod started the first 4 weeks and then got injured. And then Baker came in and he didn't really have a choice. But I've always sort of doubted Hugh Jackson's ability to gauge talent based on the decisions that he makes. All right. So I'm going to get to my negative here. I'm sure you agree. I mean, you said it all. My negative here is going to be easy. Troy, what was that on Saturday? Like, I know Goose Crowder got hurt and Tucker Gilcrease had to come in, but it wasn't like they were setting the world on fire before that point. And Kilcrease goes 10 of 29 for 65 yards and an interception. With Zeke, this tops your previous point about QBR. With a QBR of 6.6, it's lower than even the guy for App State. Okay, they couldn't run the ball. They couldn't throw the ball. At one point, I tweeted out like the stats. They had like 50 yards through 3 quarters. And someone, of course, tweets at us like, we don't have any idea like what's going on in the game. It's like, oh, is Goose Crowder hurt? Yeah, I know Goose Crowder's hurt. They were averaging at one point through 3 quarters 3 yards per minute of possession. So when they would get the ball, every minute they had, they'd get 3 yards, and that was it. And then it was a punt or a turnover. Their only score in this game was a strip sack to scoop and score of Brendan Lewis. So the offense didn't even accomplish scoring a touchdown. I know they had a long touchdown call back for like an illegal formation or whatever. I get it, but also Tucker Kilcrease is like, I'm borderline. I've only done this with one other player in the Sun Belt that I can name, and it's because he played for my team. I'm very close to saying Tucker Kilcrease shouldn't be on a FBS roster. Like, I'm really close to just being like, this dude should not be playing college football. I don't know what the coach was thinking, keeping him on the roster. Like Goose Crowder, sure, fine, whatever. Didn't play that much last year, got hurt, whole deal. Caldwell transfers to Texas to back up Arch Manning. He might end up being the starter before it's all said and done. But Tucker Kilcrease, I saw nothing on Saturday that makes me think like, hey, this guy should be playing college football at the highest level.
I got another quarterback that's similar to, actually, I'm going to give you 3 quarterbacks before the end of the episode that should also be included in that. Okay. Tad Hudson, Coastal Carolina.
Yeah.
Who took that job from another guy who may not deserve to be on an FBS roster, MJ Morris. My second bad is Coastal Carolina in their 38-0 loss to East Carolina. This team has no offense. They are in the quarterback hell that Southern Miss was in just last year, as recently as last year, where they've got like 3 guys that are not, completely raw, unplayed freshmen, and all of them are bad. Not a single one of them has shown to be a competent quarterback for this team. And I saw a funny tweet yesterday after this game, and it's like, everything about Coastal Carolina is awesome, except for the football.
The unis,
the field is cool. The logo is beautiful. The colors work well. Well, the teal's a little dark. I'd like a little lighter in there, but the colors are cool. The field is great. The uniforms are great. Your head coach is hanging out with the cheerleaders shirtless on the beach. Apparently the athletic director does like a really, really good job about getting the students involved. Apparently from what they're saying, he does a knockout job. But the football sucks.
I'd like to see him do a really, really good job of hiring head coaches after Jamie Chadwell left.
Yeah. Tim Beck, his buyout is, I'm reading different things. I'm reading 3 million. I'm reading 1.5 million. I'm reading 1 in a million. Or 1 in a million, 1 million. $1. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a number that's too high. Take the NIL money that you're giving to Tad Hudson and MJ Morris, and I don't know, Javin Simpkins, and take that money and buy out Tim Beck, because the sooner that guy is gone, the sooner Coastal Carolina can move on from this. And this is a problem that App was kind of dealing. I don't think they had this problem with
Sean
what's
Clark?
his name? Sean Clark.
No,
but it's something.
This is way worse than that.
But like, we're seeing it now with Louisville. Jesus, I'm sorry, I'm still very drugged up on the strep throat stuff.
Sorry.
but we're seeing it at Louisiana now with Desermo. It's like these teams that were the closest we had to national brands, Coastal Carolina and the surf turf and the really fun option
Troy.
stuff that they were doing. Troy, I mean, these teams just fell off a cliff as soon as the coach left. Fell off a cliff. App is doing. We're liking what we're seeing out of Dowell Loggins. Maybe.
Yeah.
It's the best of the four. It's the best of the four.
Easily.
But I mean, Louisiana's in the hellhole. Troy's in the hellhole. Coastal's in the hellhole. And it's actually JMU is the only team that has gone through a coaching change, save for Southern Miss. But I feel comfortable calling Southern Miss the exception that proves the rule, considering they brought in an in-conference coach that had just won Conference Coach of the Year. No one is making this transition well. And I don't know. I guess there's nothing you can really do about that. But I think that hurts the long-term integrity of the brand and hurts the long-term integrity of the like G5 football, that as soon as everyone hears about you and your coach gets hired up by a P5 or takes the coordinator job, or in the case of App, just like he was really good, but just couldn't get over the hump. And as soon as people start to learn your name, they flip you on and they watch you lose 38-0 to East Carolina.
I remember saying this when I'm not even tooting my own horn, but I had this question when both Gerard Parker and Tim Beck got hired. What did you see offensively? And I'm asking, I guess, the ADs in theory.
Yeah.
What did you see offensively that you thought if they take that offense and bring it here with lesser talent, it's still going to be successful? And I guess that's a rhetorical question, and the answer was eventually like nada. Or I hope I trip and fall over a quarterback that's playable, like Troy did last year with Caldwell at the end of the season. Coastal's not been close. The crazy thing for me with Tim Beck is I almost give him less leeway than I do some of these other new coaches, because a lot of times if you're Marshall's head coach, you're starting over with a brand new team.
Yeah.
If you're Louisiana, when Desermo took over, was starting over with a brand new team. Like Levi Lewis, all those guys were gone. Like they had won with Napier and they were out. Speaking of, Napier might be available to come back to Louisiana if that move it necessitates itself. My thing with Beck is he had a year of Grayson McCall to kind of buoy everything and kind of get his recruiting under control. He wasn't thrown into the deep end the way that a lot of these other teams with new head coaches are, like Troy, where it's like, I've got a brand new team, like from scratch. We've got hardly anybody left over from this 2 championship years with Summerall. He had a year with a very, very good quarterback to like at least get some talent in recruiting wise and be like, listen, year 2 might be a little rough, but I can insulate myself with the time that I have. He has done none of that. Apparently he was playing chutes and ladders or whatever in his first year as coach, because he was like, I can win somewhat with Vasco. I can win with Grayson McCall when he's not concussed immensely. And then now you're like, all right, well, we're in the Wizard of Oz and the sheet has fallen and we can see the guy behind the curtain and it's not happening. So
I mean, in that first year with McCall, they went 8-5, and then last year they finished the year 6-7, 3-5 with your conference wins over Old Dominion, who is maybe turning it around now, but last year certainly was not turning anything around.
No.
App State, who we now know was this was in November, so we now know in the end of the Sean Clark, and then Georgia State, who last year and this year are kind of the pits of the conference. So clock's ticking, and I don't know how much longer do you give the guy? How much longer do you give Tim Beck? Do you let him get to conference play? Do you see how that works out?
I think you do, but I mean, if it keeps up like it did last year, like you said, I mean, it's not going to be any better. So, I mean, I think he and Gerard Parker are both on like very, very borrowed time. Yeah. Like the only reason, like you said, either one of those coaches is still around is probably because of the buyout, not because of, hey, we actually think this guy can turn it around. Like, I think those ships have both sailed kind of at this point. I'm going to get to my last negative. We can knock it out because we got a couple other games to talk about. My last negative, this was I guess the ultimate result was expected. So like you can kind of take this with a grain of salt. It was more just how it happened. So Louisiana loses 52-10 to Missouri. Again, a ranked SEC school is nothing to kind of be like, no, you've lost your quarterback for the season in Walker Howard. You're starting Daniel Beal and Lunch Winfield and all these other guys who sound like goons in a Batman game. My thing was Ahmad Hardy saw blood in the water and like was like a shark. So he played at ULM last year, had 1,400 yards rushing, was the lifeblood of that offense. In this game, 22 carries, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, and basically buried his former rival team by himself single-handedly because Bo Pribula only threw for 174 yards, but you don't have to do much when your running back is averaging, 10, almost 10 yards a carry. Over 10 yards a carry.
So Ahmad Hardy, I pulled this up, and you mentioned this earlier. I love the take away your longest rush game because one 70-yard rip, even a 40-yard rip, can really artificially inflate your stats and not be representative of your whole body of work. If you take away all of Ahmad Hardy's carries of over 15 yards, he finishes 18 carries, 115 yards, 6.4 per carry, 6.4 per carry, and that is ignoring all of the carries of at least 15 yards. That's insane.
That's nuts.
Louisiana, Ahmad Hardy is your daddy. Because what did he do last year against you? 28 carries for 172. And now with, granted, a better team, better offensive line, puts up a career game. This guy's going to be good.
Better quarterback, 100%.
Dude, Ahmad Hardy is legit.
Yeah.
He is legit. And we've seen a couple of
they ever got him in Monroe to begin with.
Yeah. And did they stumble on him? I don't remember how it went down, but he was a little bit of a late bloomer.
He started game 1. He was a true freshman last year. And tore it up and then immediately bounced, which I don't have any, I don't have any ill will for him doing that. That's, betting on yourself. But yeah, he's probably the best offensive player for a ranked SEC school, and he was playing at ULM last year.
Good for him, man.
It's crazy.
Really good for him.
All right. Do you want to run down what we have left?
Let me pull it up. I lost my schedule page. I'm sorry.
Marshall beat Eastern Kentucky. They pick up their first win, 38-7. It looks like for this one, Carlos Del Rio Wilson came in and played. He wasn't good early in the season when they played Georgia. I don't believe he took a snap in week 2. I think it was totally Zion Turner's job, and he looked bad in week 2 when they lost to Missouri State, who was a FBS call-up in year 1. And then, they beat a FCS school with Carlos Del Rio Wilson. So maybe they finally settled on somebody, but I'm going to be honest, man, we said this in the preseason and I kind of feel this way. Like, I just don't feel like the ceiling on this team could be super, super, super high. Like, I think we're looking at a 4-win team a la Troy last year, probably.
Yeah, they didn't ask a lot out of Del Rio Wilson. He ultimately only threw 9 passes. Which I don't know. I guess if you're up early and you just want the game over, but there's not a lot here. Yeah.
I've got my game here. Georgia Southern outlasts Jacksonville State 41-34. The stats won't really bear it out. I thought JC French played pretty well in this one.
Yeah.
I thought he looked decisive with his reads. I thought that he displayed kind of a level of athleticism that I don't usually see out of him. Like, he was pretty, they always teach quarterbacks, like, hit your back foot, 1, 2, 3, boom, ball needs to come out. I saw a lot of that out of him. And then when it wasn't there, he was pretty eager to kind of take off and run. And like, I don't usually see that out of him. Like, he doesn't have that skill set really. So like, I was kind of surprised to get that. The running backs kind of owned this game, and with OJ Arnold, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns. I thought Badinga, the other running back, looked good. Dalen Cobb returned a kick for a touchdown. And their defense is just absolute garbage. Like, there's no way around it. I would be shocked if this season continues in conference play the way that I anticipate it to. Brandon Bailey's going to be shown the door probably very quietly after the last game of the season, because when Clay like dismisses somebody, he's like too nice about it and won't just straight up fire him. He like does this like soft push off where he's like, "Oh, you've got another job. Isn't that interesting?" Like, our ex offensive coordinator, go coach tight ends at Alabama. No, you've got a better job for more money, definitely. So
Sure.
I anticipate Bailey hitting the bricks at the end of the season, but it was a fine win for them. I thought the offense looked good.
Yeah.
We talked
and then
about your game. Then,
the only other game is Texas State's loss to Arizona State, and Texas State. This is the worry, right? That they are never going to stop points from being scored, and when you can't match it, it's just not going to be there. Brad Jackson, after looking interesting in week 2 against UTSA, completed only 60% of his passes, but threw for 286 yards on an average depth of target of 10 yards, which is kind of
no. He threw for 184.
No, I'm talking last week at UTSA.
Oh, last week. I thought you were talking about this one. I was like, no.
He had an interesting week last week against UTSA where he was relatively inefficient, but had a bunch of yardage because they were just throwing it deep. But this week, complete 70% of his passes on 36 attempts, but only 184 yards. Jury's still out, but it does not look great for him early. He is a freshman, so give him time, but the jury's still out. We've not seen a full body of work, and he only threw 15 times as a true freshman last year. This is the problem with Texas State. This is the problem that we saw. Actually, Arkansas State played a better defensive game this week, but this is the problem that we are going to continue to see with Arkansas State, where it's like, shoot, man, if you're going to allow 34 points, you better score 35 of your own. And again, with a young quarterback, not a ton of weapons, we'll see how it plays out.
Was also sacked 5 times as well.
I want to see a cut up of that. I don't know how the hell I would do that, but I want to see it because 5 sacks, that is either entirely the offensive line or entirely the quarterback. When you get that volume, it's just like, all right, which of you didn't do your job? And I, just need to see him.
I know people say like sacks are somewhat a quarterback stat, and I agree to an extent, but I've seen some really, really awful offensive lines just totally sell their quarterback down the river. So I can't automatically put that on him, but 5 seems like, okay, that's a little bit on your plate. Like, it wasn't like Arizona State had one pass rusher that couldn't be blocked. They had 5 different guys, each with a sack. So it was kind of like a team effort. And it's like what you said, or I guess what we all said in the preseason is like, they're going to have to average 36 points a game again to win 8 games. So it's the chicken or the egg. Are they going to score that, or is their defense going to be better? How are they going to get to 8 wins? And it's like, the win over UTSA was nice, but I think we still don't really know what to expect out of UTSA. So I think it's a little too early to be like, hey, that win is going to help them build towards something. Like, it just kind of feels like, whatever.
Yeah.
So
Bo Sparks, 10 catches, 70 yards. Shout out. Love high volume
Lincoln
guys.
Pear is getting some run finally, and you talked about TJ Finley. Year 7 in the Sun Belt. Lincoln Pear finally gets some burn, actually gets to play. Yeah.
It was a rough week. I mean, there were some interesting performances. The Southern Miss, obviously, we have, again, as far as you'll allow it, quality losses against ranked teams. But at the bottom, man, Troy, Georgia, maybe not even Georgia State, but Coastal. Louisiana right now, where you've got, as you said, I mean, Daniel Beal. There is a cut segment of our show where I am drilling Daniel Beal. And I asked you after the episode, I was like, hey man, I was just trying to give Matt some shit. Let's reel it back. Maybe we need to edit that back into the episode. Because this
I don't know how we would do that.
I don't know how either, but this kid cannot play.
No.
We're in a tight spot, man. But conference play begins not in earnest, but opens up more next week. So, here's hoping.
Yeah. All right, Zeke. So that does it for week 2 in the Sun Belt. Tell folks where they can find you on socials, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Zeke Palermo, ZekePalermo. You can also follow the pod. Brian has subsidized our Pro Football Focus subscription, and we're doing some interesting things, just picking out notable things from each week. That's been a lot of fun, just kind of getting to see numbers and analysis that we wouldn't otherwise have. There's 14 teams in our conference, and when they're each playing non-conference games, it's tough to keep track of. And so Pro Football Focus, if you're ever looking to sponsor a 500 subscriber podcast, there's growth potential here. There's growth potential, and just think about the upside. We urge you to reach out to us. Yeah, man, good stuff.
As always, you can email the show, warmweatherfans@gmail.com. You can follow us on X at warmweatherfans. You can follow me, as you can see on the screen below my name here, at Watch the Stone. We will be back later this week to talk over week 3 and all the big matchups in the Sun Belt for this upcoming Saturday. This has been Warm Weather Fans.